Greetings and salutations, friend. I am Jeremy Tank, and if you are watching this, I am your brand guy. What does that mean? Well, it means you've got someone on your side and in your corner to really help you create a brand transformation. Wow, that's a big term, isn't it? Brand transformation. That means that you want to go from some place of perception. You are seen, you are feeling one thing, and you want to go work to a place where you are seen and feeling something else entirely. The great thing about the idea of brand is it applies to personal brands, which is you working for yourself, for your employer, for anything like that, or just you trying to make your life better. Because you deserve that, right? God knows in our society there are enough of us that we have struggled, we have been taught what we should do, and we've had to learn to kind of make our own path or find our own little niche to live in because it doesn't work like, it's supposed to, the entire system. So really, personal transformation, personal brand transformation is really about figuring out who you are, where you are, and creating the path to your future. Now, the great news about that is that the same thing applies for a company, based on where they want to go. If you're the CEO, if you are the owner of your company right now and you have people working for you, then there are always things that you can do to improve your view of the company, the view of your employees, the view of, the culture, the communication, everything coming together in the systems, the processes to really drive your company forward. And if you're in marketing, if you're a brand guy, you know that this is already applied to products and services across the board. Apps galore have all kinds of different brands, even though they're the exact same app. Throw a different logo at the top, choose some different colors, brand it a slightly different way, boom, release it out to the public, sell 1 million copies, boom, basically retire, right? I've met a couple of people. That's basically what they do, is they rebrand other apps, tweak it, change it just enough that it doesn't, resemble the first one, and then release it. Genius. So today I want to continue this conversation a little bit that I've been having the last couple days. Hi Teresa, hi Patrick, nice to see you guys. I want to continue this conversation about active experience. And before I can continue to the next piece, I'm just going to recap a little bit. So you are the sum total of everything that has happened to you in your life. And that includes before you were ever born, and especially the first several years that you were brought up, I would say till about the age of 7 or so, where your brain is super malleable. Like it's just a sponge. We say that kids are sponges. They actually are. The brain it works on a theta wave frequency, which is sort of like when you're almost down to really deep sleep and you're kind of in that kind of zoning out space. That's a theta wave frequency, and children live there before the age of 7. That means that they are just absorbing everything that's said around them, all the culture, all of the sayings, language, things to do or not to do. And the reason that they do that, the reason that the brain is constructed that way and built that way at that age, is that it uses one, repetition, but mostly it uses the fight or flight response and the factors that create the fight or flight response to create triggers in your body about items that bring that person, you maybe, closer to satisfaction, happiness, goals, community, belonging, familiarity, and away from pain, trouble, anxiety, depression, sadness, things that might cause us to not want to live, honestly, or not be able to live. The body is programmed in this way so that it quickly, I say quickly, but it's like 7 years. That is not quick, right? But that is the fastest way that we can get an infant, a tiny human person thing, up to the speed of, hey, you are almost ready to go out and be self-sufficient. And according to biology, basically, about 9 or 10, we should be able to go out and be self-sufficient. That's why in the Middle Ages, people got married at like 13, 14, 15. By the time they're 20, they're in old age and they're spinsters. And, they say, forget about it. In the Middle Ages, it was not uncommon to have girls, 13, 14-year-old girls giving birth, because at that time, the death rate was so high that really a lot of our anatomy and physiology adapted to that time, which was based on all the time coming before that, we had all Greece, all of the Dark Ages, all these kinds of things, they stacked up so that mortality, when it was super low, meant that we started reproducing earlier. We started reaching maturity where we could go out and be self-sufficient, not have to rely on adults or our community. And then there's the other side of that, right? Because there's always this other side. We live in a world, a universe, a physical realm. How's that? I'm going to say physical realm. We live in a physical realm where we exist within duality. So whenever there's one side of things, there's always another side of things. And I'm just going to tell you this. If you get stuck on one side, try flipping to the opposite side of it and see if your brain accepts it a little bit more. That just seems to be the way that we're programmed. Because there's duality, there's flexibility, and there's a grayscale between everything. And there's always room to trick yourself, to tell yourself something and get yourself to move forward. That's the fun part. So, on the one side, our bodies during that time, and even up through now, but, it's starting to become a little bit later and a little bit earlier, all the hormones in the food, go figure. The drive is to become independent and self-sufficient as fast as possible. And generally for human beings, I would say between 8 and 10 is about that point. And, if I grew up in the Southwest in Phoenix and Scottsdale, and there were quinceañeras galore, which is, when girls become, in the Hispanic culture, become of age to be considered an adult. Now we know that there's bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, that's the Jewish culture, when those men and women become adults. Now this age range shifts a little bit between cultures, but a lot of cultures have this idea of letting someone become an adult at a certain point. And it's earlier than the United States, than countries, than political ideologies choose. And that's, I don't know, a statement against our political ideologies and what that looks like. It has to do with child labor laws in the 1920s and 30s and keeping children safe until they're an appropriate age, right? That's very political. That is not having to do with the actual body and longer term. Because a lot of these, like the Hispanic culture and the Jewish culture, when they celebrate these rites of passage, and the Native American culture, very similar thing. There is a rite of passage to say this person is independent. And before that point, they rely on the community. And when they become independent, they have to pay homage to the community, because the community is the separate side of that spectrum. Becoming an individual means that you have a capability to work for yourself, and you have a responsibility, meaning the ability to respond to your community, to take care of the community, to foster the community. You have an ability to take care of yourself and a responsibility to take care of the community. Okay. All this being your physical existence. Congratulations, you're in a body. You get some years where you get to play around, learn how this whole thing works, and then you're an individual and you have to be responsible for community. Crud, that's a lot, right? All of a sudden we haven't even got into active experience, and all of a sudden it's like I'm having to grow up and think of all of this stuff. I know most of you have been there for a while, but roll with me here. So the opposite side of this physical reality would be the idea of an energetic reality. And when we look at quantum science and quantum physics, what we see is that at the smallest level of things, we are an energy reality. In fact, all energy essentially exists all around us all the time in a ocean of energy. Everything, if you imagine a 0 point, everything from -0 through negative infinity, and everything from 0 to positive infinity is energy. And it's all around you all the time, influencing you, passing through you. Your cells break down into molecules and atoms, which they of themselves become even smaller in protons, neutrons, quarks, muons, like all these different things, subatomic particles, which when we look at these, they're not actually things. It's a bunch of empty space with some kind of energy floating around and zigzagging and doing this crazy thing, where it moves so fast, it appears as if it's solid. And because it's moving so fast, it's creating an energetic friction on itself, essentially, and it starts to gain a charge, which then attracts and moves other particles that are doing the same thing. Particles, waves, really. It's just energy. Energy that is everywhere. It starts attracting and doing all these funky things, and in our perception, all of this energy on the subatomic level, moving around, colliding with each other, doing this crazy dance, forms something solid. Several scales up, we can actually look down and say, okay, well, everything looks solid to us, but really, what we understand through quantum physics is that what we see as solid is a trick of the mind. And this is a fun trick, right? You get to experience all of this, including the whole responsibility, individuality, growing up. You get to experience that because your mind is tricked by quantum physics into thinking that something is there, that something is real, that something is tangible, that something is scary, that something is exciting. All of this are reactions within us to the energy around us. You don't actually see anything or touch anything around you. You are touching fields, and those fields are conducting information through your fingers, through your skin, through your beard, through your eyes, through your ears. All of these are waves of some type of energy that your body picks up and transfers to your brain, where your brain gets it and goes, okay, what do I do now? That is your active experience. That is the moment when everything comes to you from all of your senses and it lands in your brain, and you have to make some kind of sense of the right here, the right now going on. And what's happening is not just all of these things from outside your body, but things from inside your body are communicating at the same time. So if you have an upset stomach, if you have bad, I don't know how to say this, if you have bacterial flora that is not good for you, if you haven't taken your probiotics, your prebiotics, if you've been taking too many antibiotics, then your gut is probably like, argh, and that is part of the signals that get sent to your brain. If you have, okay, here's a crazy one. I want you to just kind of think about this in terms of the COVID that's out there. I have had chickenpox twice in my life. Chickenpox is the same virus that creates shingles later in life for most people, because chickenpox is the core virus underneath that is it doesn't really go away in the body. It sticks around in the body. And later in life, it is so opportunistic that when you get older, when your immune system starts to fade a little bit, these viruses tend to react, come back to life, and attack and charge in different ways. And that's why we've had to develop a shingles vaccine, because it attacks that same virus and tries to, get the immune system to actually work against it later in life. The same thing goes with several other viruses. I got I got mono when I was 30 years old, and this is about 10 years ago. But that mono was so bad that I became exceptionally jaundiced. My liver was in the process of that whole thing. And I had to have blood draws like every single day to make sure I was on track to stay alive. And I found out that the virus involved in mono, the Epstein-Barr virus, is also the virus that's involved in, Epstein-Barr syndrome, which is also tied to chronic fatigue syndrome. So bearing in mind that stay around for a long time in the system, and they tend to change how they react based on your body, based on what you are doing with it, based on your level of health, what that does to the body in different contexts. Okay, so where was I? I keep getting a Wi-Fi outage, so I just switched off from Wi-Fi. So the whole concept is that viruses change within your system. They change how they react on the outside of your system. They change how they impact your system. Here's the thing that people don't often realize, is that in the process of existing in your system, these viruses are also part of the cues that trigger different behaviors, different thoughts, different cravings, different, behaviors is really the big thing that comes down to it. Because as viruses ebb and flow within your system and you try to fight things, they are part of the unknown body entity that is directing the things that you do and how you do them. So are hormones, so are lots of other things. All of this stuff is part of the signals that come up into your being, up to your conscious and your other than conscious self, to direct what you are doing on a given basis. Now, other than viruses whose main purpose is to propagate themselves, they honestly, when they're inside of you and they're part of that active experience, they're trying to keep you alive as well, because if you survive, then they survive. I mean, at that point, it's a symbiotic relationship. But the rest of your body, and the rest of your body is trying to position your thinking, your beliefs, your active experience so that you will make the right decisions that are familiar, that are safe, that keep you alive. Now, the problem with active experience and being a human being in our society in particular is that we create so much safety in the way that we live, so much division, so much individuality, that we sort of move past the community thing. And because in our culture we really don't have a graduation ceremony for general men and women to be told, you are now a man, you are now a woman, we don't know when to make that switch to know, okay, now we take care of ourselves and we have a responsibility for community. That was just a side note. But the brain tries to direct us in a way that keeps us moving forward. That's the active experience. It is actively using your memories and your cellular memories, your biological thought processes, everything passing through the limbic midbrain, which doesn't have language, doesn't have thought, doesn't have cognition, but it has feeling, it has sensation, it has a drive for survival. And all of these things points and come up to your brain, to what you are facing, so that you can take the next step to be successful in life. Life wants to be successful in life. Well, life wants to enjoy life. Life doesn't want to not be alive. The challenge in society is that we actually live in a place and a time where you can make less and less decisions that stack up in sort of this pyramid shape, so that you are literally living underneath a pyramid, living safe, but up at the top, there's so little choices in what you do in life to expand who you are, to get outside of yourself. And the more that you make choices that keep limiting yourself, you get stuck. And there are people in society that are basically asleep. They go to work, they eat basically the same meals, they do basically the same thing day after day. It is wash, rinse, repeat sort of idea with life. And that is not a great way to be living, because you're not really expanding at all. That is stagnation in Chinese medicine. I've talked about the 3 different types of energy movement in the universe. One is the pendulum, which goes back and forth. That's when you try to move forward and then something happens and inside something happens and you end up right back where you were when you started. There is stagnation, where you're not moving anywhere. You're not doing anything. Stagnation really leads to self-doubt, leads to depression, leads to bad feelings, honestly, because you are designed to move, to grow, to keep adapting, to keep changing. That's the reason that you are worthy of anything and capable of anything. You are put here to be able to take anything and make it what you want it to be. And the third one is creative energy. It's direct momentum. It's having a path and finding the path and going with the path. Now, the thing about that active experience is that when you want something and you start down that path, you make a conscious choice to move down that path. Now, our actions are guided 5% by the conscious mind, 95% by the unconscious or other than conscious mind. Now, that's a challenge. If your other than conscious mind doesn't want to take the steps to move you forward, it will stop you, even though you are making conscious choices. Well, that's crappy. We need to move forward, right? How do you do that if 95% of your brain is holding you back? And how do you know if 95% of your brain is holding you back? Well, for one, you get that pendulum kind of energy. You get that energy where you take 2 steps forward and then you end up right back where you started and nothing seems to have really changed. It really is just a form of stagnation, but you keep taking steps that you think will get you somewhere. The other way is to talk with the subconscious mind, to have a dialogue with that subconscious mind. And really, by listening to this video right now, we are having a dialogue with the subconscious mind because it's always listening, it's always watching, it's always learning about everything about itself, about the world, and how to keep you safe, how to keep you happy, how to keep you moving forward. And here's the thing. In the active experience, and I've held up this little picture, pull out my big old notebook. Here's all my notes that I make for everything, all these lectures and everything. Here's the active experience. On the smiley side, we have the conscious brain, because it's happy, it's making decisions. Every one of these things up here is a decision, it's a thought, it's a memory, it's something that, thanks Tree, it's something that becomes a piece of you. And in fact, they call it a part. This is the part of Jeremy that remembers fishing. This is the part of Jeremy that remembers putting on sandals in Florida every summer when I visit my dad. This is the part of Jeremy that enjoyed rowing the boats. And this is the part of Jeremy that enjoyed scuba diving, right? Over here is the other than conscious part, and that's not a tongue, that is like a little drool, because the other than conscious part is not actively participating in things. It's throwing out ideas, it's throwing out concepts, it's throwing out things that it wants you to remember. So this is the piece of Jeremy that made it about 30 feet down in the water scuba diving, and then suddenly had a sinus headache that he could not get rid of, could not eliminate, and so he had to come back to the surface. This is the part of Jeremy that went swimming, and then his dad pointed out 3 different sharks, and got spooked and climbed back in the boat. This is the part of Jeremy that, I don't know, like any of these things. Like, this is the part of Jeremy that held down the sailboat as the 90-mile-per-hour winds kicked up in a freak storm down in the Keys, and the sailboat, because it had a sail out, was about to take off, and I literally jumped on the thing until my dad came over and we held it down until the wind gusts abated enough that we could take down the sail and wrap it up. See, all of these ideas in the unconscious pop up, and it's active experience, because I think of that idea now. Now, when I say it out loud, that is part of the conscious experience, but there are things that are part of that unconscious that certainly resonate with whatever we're doing, and it directs us. And part of the reason it directs us is because, as I was saying, of that training of the fight or flight before the age of 7, that fade away frequency that really locks in these memories, these trainings, these thoughts. What is appropriate? What's inappropriate? What should we make familiar because it is repeated in our family, our life, our culture, our icons? And what do we need to stay away from because somebody gets angry at us, somebody scolds us, somebody hits us, somebody, there's all these things that we don't do because we are frightened of something like that happening. And what happens is it's a lot of the fear and anxiety that pop up in the unconscious, the subconscious experience that prevent us from moving forward. In fact, it's mostly fear and anxiety. It's mostly fear that has happened in the past. That's how we know about it. That's how it became programming in the body. And really, in Chinese medicine, it's programmed in different pieces and parts of our cells. When you are really stressed and anxious, it lands in the kidney, the liver overacting on spleen. That has nothing to do with Western medicine. I swear to God, your organs are fine. It's just a way to describe where things happen and how they process in the body in the Chinese medicine. Really interesting stuff. So your body basically is coated with these ideas, and based on Bruce Lipton's work, the biology of belief, it's really in the cells. The cells themselves are tiny little computers that take all of the proteins, all of the nutrients, all of the information passed through the plasma, passed through the blood, passed through lymph fluid, and the cells basically sitting in that medium absorb what they need to absorb, toss off what they need to toss off, change DNA based on those results. That is called epigenetics, when you are actively changing your DNA based on what you put into your body. And what you put into your body is also what you say and hear about yourself. It's what you think about yourself. That is active programming as much as any kind of food or medicine. Your cells respond to it. Your brain releases proteins into your cells that tell them to be a certain way, that tell them to heal a certain way, to tell them to grow, to prosper, to not create crap. How's that? So in the process of that, all of that is what makes energy, frequency. It's all tied into the atoms and the molecules in all of these things that your body uses. And all of that is thrown right back in as the conscious and unconscious experience in the active experience. So how do you stop? Yesterday I said, I tell you how to stop. This is the whole point of today, getting you to this point right now where we say, how do you stop? How do you actually take that path that you want to take without the subconscious, unconscious, all those parts in that active experience stopping you? And the thing is, you got to reconnect with your body. And that's hard these days. A lot of us are really taught to be, our culture really embraces staying up here. It embraces the logical, stoicism. Stow your emotions, push them down, be logical, act on the brain, be very material, which is particle. But we know that life is both particle and energy, and that at its source, everything is energy. The unity of energy in the quantum field, right? Everything is possible because everything is just energy, and it's the observer that changes it. So we can't just be material. Because part of that is paying attention to the body. Part of it's paying attention to how your body feels about something. If all of this stuff is coming up from the body to keep you safe, to keep you secure, it wants to favor the familiar, it wants to favor the safe, which means that you're pushing against a window of fear, possibly even anger, depression, anxiety. These emotions are there to tell you something. They're there because at some point in your life, these were tutors to you to teach you to behave a certain way. And to move past this, to move into the future that you actually want, means not changing who you are. That's the big thing. You don't need to change who you are. Maybe it just means dialoguing with your subconscious better. Maybe it means just telling yourself, I am safe. Everything is okay. I do not need to fear life in general. I don't need to fear making choices. I don't even need to fear failure, because failure is what? Failure is my first attempt. Failure is getting out there and trying for one time, because you only succeed when you try again and again and again and again. Somewhere in our lives, we're taught that failure is a bad thing, that failure should be feared and pushed aside, but nobody succeeds at anything the first time. All of us require practice. But the subconscious mind's not quite familiar with that concept for most of us. The subconscious mind wants to keep us safe and familiar, and practicing something new, becoming an expert at something new, that's tough for a part of us that wants to keep us safe and familiar in the past. But if you stay safe and familiar in the past all the time, this is that pyramid. You get trapped in a pyramid because you're at the top of it. You just keep making less and less choices. So part of moving past the active experience, there's two pieces to it. Piece one, moving past the active experience, is acknowledging that is the active experience. And the active experience, by the time you have cognition of it, is already in the past. It means that if you are sitting there and thinking about the active experience, thinking about what's going on, you are not in the flow of life. You are not taking advantage of what is happening now. You are taking advantage of what has happened in the last moment. And that could be a quarter of a second, that could be 2 minutes, that could be 10 years ago. You are living in the past. Part two of overcoming that is understanding and really affirming to yourself that is a caveman part of you, that is a Neanderthal part of you, that is the lizard brain, that is the piece of you. Hell, give it a name if you want to. Call it Doug or Nancy. Give it a name, because that is not you. That is a piece of you that wants to keep you safe, but it doesn't understand that you need to fly, because you are awesome and you have a path to the future. And I personally believe that this quantum field is the vortex that Abraham Hicks always talks about. Everything is out there. Everything is possible. Everything is already ready to manifest for you when you get in the flow of life. And being in the flow of life means telling that Neanderthal brain, everything is okay. Everything is cool. Everything is happening exactly as it needs to happen. It's not about faith in a higher power. It's about faith in yourself to simply be. In Tao, this is called like the Wu Wei, or the non-action, the effortless being. It's not pushing. It's not shoving. It's not fighting to have something happen. It's the idea that life is happening, and that there's some force behind it, the Tao, the way. It's unknowable, right? I just thought of that... the book and the movie on Amazon, just blanked the name of it. So that's awesome. The Ineffable Plan. If you guys have seen the movie, then you'll know the reference. But the idea here is you need to actually talk to the mind, because it's part of the nutrition of your system. As much as you need to eat healthy food, you need to tell yourself and hear yourself say this: you are enough. I am enough. I am worthy of my choices. My body is getting slimmer and sexier every day. I have an incredible memory. I deserve all the joy that life sends my way. Because really, this is all about faith in yourself. And those voices in your head, those are triggered by past trauma. You have literally been trained in this physical form by trauma. You have been trained to be a certain way, to act a certain way, to stay in a certain little box and not to move past it by trauma throughout your life. And you've actually been told, probably, that in order to be somewhere else, doing something else, you have to be somebody else. And the truth is that you don't. You can be perfectly you. You don't even experience your identity. Your identity would be saying, like, I'm a man. I am a Hawaiian shirt wearer. I am a sock wearer. I am a cat dad. Right? These are all things that end up defining me, and defining like that doesn't give me any choice. That's why I say you don't experience your identity. Other people do that because contrast, comparing, creating judgments is part of what our brain does. That's how we categorize people we know and things that we do as part of our culture, whether it's good or bad. So the thing we have to do is tell that caveman brain, it's okay. I get it. You feel scared. You feel anxious. You feel like you're not enough. I hear you. Breathing always helps. Because the truth is, you are enough. You made it into this world. And everything here that you experience is here for you. That's the fun part. This is the part when you realize that you can actually start playing with life, playing with the universe, playing with everything. Because your experience is your experience. Nobody sees the world the way that you do. That's why you're special. That's why you're enough. That's why you're worthy. You are meant to be here and now, achieving whatever it is that you want to be achieving. This is your life. It's all for you. This is the joy of being you. It's not to say there's not going to be good times and bad times. That's waves. That's frequency. That's everything, right? The Wu Wei says basically, like, look, be in life, enjoy doing life. Don't get hung up on the fear, on the anxiety, on the unconscious parts. That's 95% of behavior. But the more that you think about it and make it conscious, the more that you're fighting with it. The more that you don't want it to be, the more that it's going to be, because it becomes a focus in both the conscious and unconscious mind. Why would you want to do that to yourself? You don't, right? So the point is to give yourself space. And understand that all of this stuff that crops up, this subconscious being, there's a reason I say that the body is the subconscious, unconscious mind. Because when this stuff comes up, when it comes into your brain, it's trying to do things that this form is used to doing. That literally is directions from the particle to the wave. That is literally the piece of you that is physical, that is trained in the body, that is trained to be this, here, now. Fleshy stuff is trying to tell you, the soul, the essence, the quantum being, the field of energy inside of you that is beyond you and more than you. It's trying to control that, which is ridiculous. Because if everything is energy at the fundamental level, the physical can't control the wave. It can work with it. It can manifest what it wants. It can drive it forward, and it can hold it stagnant. Right? It can create the pendulum. Fear and anxiety reflecting in the world around us. It can create stagnation by not allowing that consciousness to move in the physical form. Or it can work with it. In very much the way, the Tao, very much Wu Wei, where you just go with that flow. You see the river of life. You feel that energy around you moving, and you say, dang it, today's the day. I'm just going to let it be. I'm going to play with it. I'm going to tell it, I want these 3 things today. I want, I don't know, what do you want? Put it in the notes. What do you want today? What are 3 things that you want today, tomorrow, at some point this week? Tell me 3 things that would make you happy. 3, for yourself. Be very selfish here. And I mean that. Be selfish, because you need to excite that energy within you. You need to excite you enough that it overcomes anything inside of you, any of that cellular programming that says be safe, be small, be unheard. Because when you excite that biggest part of you, then the universe notices and says, okay, we can make that happen. It's easy. It's easy for the universe. And you deserve it. So tomorrow I'm probably going to wrap up this whole conversation about the active experience and tell you a little bit more about how this stuff works and actually try to put a little cap on it that really is like the creme de la creme about working with yourself, working with your subconscious, working within the active experience, and really what it takes to achieve that next step for you, whatever that is. My program, my business program that I run is called Manifest Design. It's an 8-session program that is all about your vision, your goals, your brand, your customers. It's very much a branding process that is all about creating the vision and the bridge for the transformation that you are trying to create for your brand, your personal brand, your company brand, your product brand, whatever that looks like. And it's super exciting because we actually use rapid transformation therapy with you so that your subconscious mind is reframed, flipped, lensed out in a way that you can basically sit there and go, oh, I see the path. It is super clear and I can't wait to walk it. Because that's what we all deserve. At least that's what I think we all deserve. I think you are awesome. I appreciate you sticking with me today. I appreciate you listening. Teresa and Patrick, every single day. Thank you guys. I love you guys. And I wish everybody the best day. Thanks.